Alright, welcome to today's Studio Armor Review, where we're going into the Exodite Independent Clan HQ units. Before I get into a lot of detail about the specific models, each of these models represents a different HQ unit. Take this opportunity to talk about some of the special rules in the Dark Eldar Codex and how they play into the Exodites. Since all of them have the feel no, all of them have the feel no pain, and the succubus unlocks for her, and witches come with this combat drugs. I want to talk about those two rules first before we get into the actual units. So, combat drugs made sense because these are the Eldar that left the homeworld after they've already tasted some of these paths of excess, and so some of them were hooked on their stimulants, their drugs, if you will. When they got to Lorien, they had to figure out ways to do it with natural ingredients, whether it's from herbs or animal chemicals, whether it's hormones or whether it's poisons literally from them. Sometimes poisons in a certain dose actually enhance, and any more than that they kill. So stuff like that. Of course, these Eldar had learned how to make different drugs. They knew it, they wanted it, and they figured out how to do it, just like Exodites would. They would understand how to use poison and chemicals, natural chemicals, to come up with all these combat drugs. So, the one thing I wanted to do, though, because names like Grave Lotus, Hypex, Serpentine, those Splinter Mine, they didn't really sound Exodite-ish, so I wanted to kind of give a name to them that made it a little more Exodite sounding. And I wanted to accomplish a couple different things. I wanted to use names that either reflected an Eldar, Exodite-ish kind of a concept, or in some cases, I want to really stress the fact these are natural herbal things. But I also wanted to try to show that they're able to take what people would generally consider normal ingredients, normal plants, and turn them into something intoxicating. So, Adrenalite's the first one, and that gives you +1 attack. I decided to call that Cain's Crown. It made perfect sense to me. Is Cain being the god of war, just increased number of attacks. That's I thought a good name choice. That's honestly the only one that I really came up with that was out of my own imagination. Most of the rest I copied from Skyrim. So the second one was Grave Lotus. That gives you +1 strength. I stole blatantly out of Skyrim. I'm calling that Scaly Foliota. That's a mushroom type of in Skyrim. In this case, I figured it's going to be a strength enhancer. With Hypex, it gives you +1 initiative. I decided to use this particular drug to show that the Eldar can take, or Exodites can take, what we would consider kind of harmless natural ingredients and make something a little more unsavory out of it. And so I chose lavender, which you wouldn't think makes sense, but lavender is one of those calming, relaxing kind of scents. And if you have ever done any type of martial art, you'll know that when you are when you're not tense, when you're relaxed, your reaction time goes up. We're not talking about a depressant here. We're talking about to the point where your body's relaxed enough where your mind can immediately communicate to your muscles to take an action. As soon as you tense up in a martial art, you're slow. You have to actually untense before you can make the move. And so this is my way of kind of weaving in an innocuous plant that the Exodites can make into something special. The next three are all copies right out of Skyrim. So for Painbringer, which increases toughness, I called it Deathbell. Names similar, death, pain. Serpentine, which increases weapon skill, I made that Canis root. And then with Splinter Mind, which increases leadership, I called that Blisterwort. I'm really terrible at coming up with names of a lot of things. As you go through this Dark Eldar Codex, and you'll hear names that come up with each of the units, you'll see how my ability to name things kind of falls apart. It's amazing. I actually came up with my name for my son when it was time. Now, the second rule that Dark Eldar have is the feel no pain. And I had to struggle for a while to figure out how to represent that, and it really dawned on me how when you get an adrenaline rush, things like pain don't really, and fear just don't come into play. They're diminished. Well, I realize that emotions do that. There's a lot of things that will make you emotional and cause you to not really worry too much about things like pain, or it'll inspire you. All these special rules you get in this power from pain. You get feel no pain, you get furious charge, fearless and rage, and all that stuff. All that can be inspired through emotion, and so I've kind of wove in to this concept. These independent clans suffered some terrible deprivations and terrible tragedy on their trip, and they lost so much, and they burned with a vengeance to avenge their loved ones and such. And so when someone has vengeance like that, it really changes you mentally. You aren't going to care if you're hurt. If you're on the path to exacting your vengeance, you're going to find every ounce of strength you have. You are not going to flinch in fear as readily, and definitely rage that describes it. So I decided to call it, instead of power from pain, we call it taste of vengeance. So as they get into their combat and they start engaging it, the vengeance starts swelling up in them. So that helps explain how you start with no effect to slowly building up each turn by turn. So that's how I came up with how to explain the power from pain. Now, with that, the independent clans have a slightly different hierarchy, whereas the house clans have nobles, barons, and dragon princes and stuff. None of that. There are no psychers. There's no administrative leaders, if you will, in the independent clans. There are martial clans in their entirety. So, instead of calling them the succubus and archon, they're essentially going to be a clan lord or clan lady, equal opportunity leadership there, within a particular clan. So, the model in the center, I'm going to go through each one and how they relate to these leaders. The center figure here is the Archon, the model that represents the Archon. So he's the clan lord of the independent clans. I haven't actually decided whether he's going to be clan lord of the Bloodsong or the Stormblades yet. It doesn't really matter right now, but I have to paint the appropriate color on their on some of his decorations to identify him with a particular clan. Now, he is just a model from the Raider. He's a Raider passenger with needler pistol. Sorry, a splinter pistol. I call them needler pistols in my Exodite world here because they fire needles that are poisoned. And then a husk blade, which is the model. The weapon itself is from a old weapon sprue from Rel Partha way back in the 80s. It's a metal piece, but it's a tulwar type of a looking weapon, and it really looks like it could be lethal. So I colored it a dark metallic black with a gray, a highlighted edge for the sharp edge of the blade. And he wears dragon type armor, the 5-up armor save. That's Megadon hide, basically, that they take the leather from the skins of the Megadons and their herds and make their own leather armor. And of course it's thick and it's tough, and so his armor is completely made by that. So that 5-up works real well in there. Now, for the succubus, see, the clan lord is the Archon, clan lord or lady, either way. That is going to be they're found in the Bloodsong, Fire Wings, and the Stormblades. That's their leaders. But now in the Dark Knives clan, there is a single pair. There's a pair, a male and a female leader over the entire clan, and then each family has their own leader over them. And so I'm going to start with those family leaders, if you will. So it counts as a succubus. Again, this is a raider passenger who, of course, she has 5-up armor the way she's actually built in the model. But what I've decided, because it doesn't match the 6-up armor she should have, that this is a succubus that actually has the armor of misery. So that's what I've actually patterned her armor after. Made it a 4-up save with a 6-up invuln. Gave her the arc which amounts to an archetype glaive, which I call a dragon glaive, and it's just the glaive or spear from the Dark Elf Warrior Regiment from the old Warhammer models. It fits really, really well as a glaive. It looks like the actual witch or succubus archetype glaive, but it has a distinct look that is not Dark Eldar, so it gets convincing. But in her case, instead of giving her a splinter pistol, I gave her the handbow equivalent. Now, it's again like a needler pistol, but instead of firing a psychically charged bolt, which would give Bladestorm, like the shuriken pistols, she's firing a poisoned bolt, which is still AP5, but it's 4-up poison. So that's how I've interpreted that. And that model, instead, we don't call them a succubus in this particular model, or in this particular Exodite codex. I call them the Blademistress. Now, again, in the Dark Knives clans, you've got men and female and male both. So it'll either be a Blademaster or Blademistress. Now, succubus is a Blademistress here. If it were a male figure with that, it would be a Blademaster. So, whereas the Dark Knives clans are the only ones that have Blademasters, Blademistresses. Now, what I've decided to do is, I really love the concept, rule-wise, of Lilith Hesperex. It's a great hero killer, but I didn't particularly like the way she was painted up. She didn't look right with that pallid skin. But I saw someone had sculpted, took off a lot of her armor and essentially gave her a leather bikini kind of thing. But the sculpting they did was really good. Put her on a more natural base and made it look like a wood elf warrior. And I thought, oh yes, that'll work. And I don't have those kind of modeling skills to do all that carving and or patience either, to make it look like skin instead of something was removed from that spot on her leg kind of thing. So I decided, well, I could take the model, make sure I'm just using the blades, and use earth tones, leather colors, to represent the different leather she would have used to make the different armor pieces or clothing. And then where the base is old banners and spears and looking debris, I would instead change that to be more natural. So in the front, I put a dryad arm to represent a fallen branch or what have you. There's a dryad arm glued to the back of this spear, and then from the spear in a couple places here, right here and here, are strands of brass wire looped over and hanging suspended down, kind of like Spanish moss looks down over here in the U.S. In some of in the Everglades and some of the southern swampy areas. You'll see the Spanish moss hanging down from the branches in just long, flowing, almost looking like beards. And so that was a way to hide the various banners and pendants on this spear, to make it look more like a fallen tree branch with the Spanish moss. And then I added in the back another tree branch and another tree branch, and it made it very woodsy, very Exodite wood elfish almost. So that is my painted interpretation of Lilith Hesperax, and I call her Moonshade. She is actually the Blade Mother of the Dark Knives clan. So she is the female leader of the Dark Knives clan. I haven't created it or built the model yet, but Dakir is the Blade Father, essentially her husband of the Dark Knives clan. He counts as Drazar, the Incubi's leader. So again, all close combat specialists. And so this is Moonshade, the Blade Mother of the Dark Knives clan. And so she'll join the Daughters of Lilith, and she'll join the witches and what have you in the close combat. But now, to be honest with you, I typically use her with the Archon with the who has the web portal, and I put him a unit of at least 5, usually 6 Wraithguard with D-Scythes. There is nothing more fun than actually dropping that without scatter right next to an opponent and wiping out one of their important units, and then having a unit that can, with strength 6 trees, my Spriggans, soak up a lot of fire and have a lot of lookout sirs for both Moonshade and the Clan Lord to keep them alive. Sometimes I'll actually give the Clan Lord the Shadow Field, so that he's got a 2-up save, invuln save for a while, but that buys her time to get into close combat with some of like the HQ, the warlord of the opponent's army, especially the Space Marines. You know, they've got the 2-up armor and all these abilities and strength, and here she goes first, has a tremendous number of attacks, ignores armor, can reroll to wound and reroll to hit. So most likely that Terminator Space Marine captain with the power claws or power fists is dead before anything happens. So it's a fantastic way to take out the enemy. If I'm feeling a little more merciful, I'll just use regular Wraith Blades. So I won't be deciding anything, but I'll still drop them in. I've got a lot of 6 toughness bodies to soak up damage, and then charge in and start doing some damage to the HQ unit. Okay. So that's the HQ units I've got, and some of the rule interpretations I've come up with to help bring the Dark Eldar Codex into the Exodite world. So I hope you kind of see how that all plays together. Hope you liked it. Go ahead and share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and staying with me through this, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.